Hello everyone, in this video we are going to determine the missing angle of a right triangle given two sides using SOHCAHTOA. So SOHCAHTOA stands for sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. That's a SO. Ka is cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. TOA is tangent. Theta equals opposite over adjacent. So some students would ask, when do I use the sine? When do I use the cosine? When do I use the tangent? How do I know that I need to use sine, cosine, or tangent? So it all depends on whatever's given in the triangle. So then it is very important that we label the parts that are given to us, because from there we can go ahead and determine, do we use the sine, do we use the cosine, or do we use the tangent? So let's get started with this first example here. So in this video we are missing the angle. So we have here angle X is missing, but we're given 13 and 18. So from this angle X, we know that our 13 here is the adjacent. So I'm gonna label this as the adjacent. And then the 18 here is the hypotenuse, because this is across from the 90 degrees. So then from here I can go ahead and say that I have an adjacent and hypotenuse. So this is opposite and hypotenuse. That doesn't work. This is opposite and adjacent. That doesn't work because I have an adjacent and hypotenuse. So I know that I need to use the ka. Okay, so then I can go ahead and set up our equation for this. Since we are looking for the angle, we are going to use the inverse. So that would be x is equal to the inverse of cosine. Since we're using cosine, so I'm going to use cosine -1, or that's the inverse, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So my adjacent here is 13 over the hypotenuse is 18. So then from here I am going to use the calculator to determine what is the measure for x. So I will place the link of this scientific calculator, decimal scientific calculator, in the link of this video in the description box below. But this is how we use this decimal calculator. So we are looking for x. So what are we gonna do is, first thing that we need to remember, it has to be in degrees. So this one you can toggle that around, and you can get radian or you can get degree, but be sure that it is set in degree. And then from here we go to function and then set up the cosine -1. So there are three of them. That's the inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent. In this problem, we have an inverse cosine. So I press this, and that is set up for me. And then I'm going to type in the 13. So I go back to main, and then I go 13 divided by 18. So I put 18. And so that gives me 43.76 degrees. So I rounded off. I dropped the rest of the numbers after the 6. So that would be 43.76 degrees. So that is the measure of the missing angle. Now that's using the decimals calculator. Now if you are using the blue calculator, it's pretty much the same thing. So all you need to do is to hit the second, and then you go cosine. That will set up the R cosine or inverse cosine, and then type in 13 divided by 18, and then close the parentheses and just hit equals, and that should give you the value. It's pretty much the same thing as this. That's 43.76. Now if you are using the yellow calculator, so if you're using the yellow calculator, I show that up here. So you are going to hit second and then cosine, and that will be set up for you. And then you type in the 13 divided by 18, close the parentheses, and that should give you the correct answer. Now if you're using a calculator and it doesn't come out to be this answer right here, 43.76, please check the setting of the calculator. It may not be in degrees. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own, and when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. We remember that we're gonna use SOHCAHTOA in order that we can solve for the missing angle on each of these triangles here. So we start with the first one here from the x, the angle is missing. This 21 is the opposite side. So I label that as the opposite. 9 is the adjacent. So I label this as the adjacent. So from here, I have adjacent and opposite. So then adjacent and opposite is TOA. So I'm going to use the TOA for this because I have an opposite and adjacent. To set this up, that would be x is equal to, that is, since that is a tangent, I use the inverse tangent. That's tangent -1. And then I will have to put in the opposite. The opposite is 21 over 9. And if I use the calculator on this, this should come out 66.80 degrees. Did you get 66.80 degrees on the second example right here? Good. Perfect. Now let's move on to the third one here. So again, pretty much the same thing. We label the parts. Putting labels would help us determine which of these three should we use. Most likely, these triangles are gonna get shuffled around. They're gonna be mixed up together. So in order to know which one to use, we need to label them so we know which of these would work. So here, this is the opposite. So I'm gonna label this as opposite, and this side right here is the hypotenuse. So then from here, I am going to use, since we have opposite and hypotenuse here, so that's a SO. So we are going to use SO for this. So because we have an opposite and hypotenuse, so I set up x is equal to, that is arc sine, that is sine -1. Then I put in the opposite, which is 7 over the hypotenuse is 11. So then this would, we use a calculator on this. This should come out 39.52 degrees. Did you get 39.52 degrees for the third example? Good. Perfect. If you find this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!